So the first question I've got here is from Armand, who asks, do you think indoctrination plays a role in terrorism? Great question, Armand. Simple answer, yes, absolutely. It's part of the doctrine of a number of terrorist groups, for instance Hamas, that they openly admit to targeting young people, children, as part of their recruitment. And there's several reasons why they do that. And actually, over the past couple of years, hundreds of children have been picked up from classrooms and within 48 hours have been sent out with explosives to commit atrocious crimes across the Middle East. And so the question is, why do they do that? Well, I suggest that there's three main reasons, really. The first is that they target children who lack authority figures in their lives. They target children who are particularly marginalised, those who've been handicapped perhaps, or bullied, or lonely, or don't have a very stable family life. And these are people who they think they can make a particularly deep impression on. The second reason they target children is because they recognise that this is the best time to kind of teach people about your values. When people are young, they're very impressionable, they're very vulnerable, they're very open to new ideas, and they're very easy to manipulate. And they're also very vulnerable and easy to intimidate. And so they're easily reached by things like social networking and videos, and they kind of listen to outside forces very easily to a much greater extent than adults do. And then the final reason I think that indoctrination is so prevalent is because the children themselves, young people often want a cause or purpose to believe in. And they're sold this story that their adults have betrayed their faith, so Muslim adults have betrayed their faith by selling out to the West and not fully protecting Islam to be the great religion of the world. And these children are given the responsibility to save their religion. And that provides a group identity that these children often lack. And it provides a story of heroism. Like they can be heroes and they can be famous, which for young people is an incredibly powerful idea. So what solutions do I think that there might be to this problem? Well, first I think there's got to be a much louder calls from the international community that this is a big problem. UN and national governments have really got to speak out about this atrocious act of terrorist groups targeting children. Then within these countries in particular that terrorist groups operate in, it's very important that you protect alternative authority sources. So the first point I made before about the lack of authority figures in the lives of the children, things like schools, things like family, things like local community members need to be protected by governments and by states to make sure that there are alternative sources of authority for these children to listen to. The second thing I think will make a difference is for children to be given a greater stake in society. Children should be listened to. We should recognise that these children are victims themselves of terrorist groups. They're not perpetrators, they're not criminals, but they're victims themselves. As we need to make sure that they're given a stake and an involvement in civil society that makes them less vulnerable, less marginalised, and therefore less easy to target for these terrorist groups. And then the third thing, and I think the most important thing, is that everyone, in particular the Muslim community, has got to discredit this narrative that adult Muslims have betrayed their faith, and that actually there's a kind of a heroism associated with giving up your life in the name of Islam. So we need people from the Muslim community, adults and moderates in the Muslim community, governments, media, teachers, cultures, people involved in culture, to really attack this narrative and make sure that it doesn't have a credible place in the minds of young people.